takeoff, be sure your seat backs are upright, your tray tables and carrying items are stowed, and all aisle armrests are lowered. Then take a moment to review the safety information card in your seat pocket. As we complete our final safety check,
Good afternoon. What a pleasure to have the opportunity to return in your company. I hope for the very same reason you all have returned to this city. I've returned to reflect upon the 20 years I spent here. A remarkable time in my life. I cannot forget it. It remains of influence. And I hope you all have returned for the same reason, to reflect upon our past, that we might better understand where we are. You know, I continue to work vehemently, consistently, in the effort to establish for our nation a universal system of education. I began that right here in this city. In fact, in 1773, I was but 30 years of age. The last royal governor of our former colony of Virginia, John Murray, the Earl of Dunmore, commissioned me to suggest an improvement of the curriculum at the old Royal College of William and Mary. It was considered by many to be far too parochial. There were only 4 schools there. Be mindful, of course, it was a seminary of the Church of England. So there was the School of Divinity for young boys who studied to become ministers in the Church of England. And then there was the grammar school for young boys, usually the eldest sons and families that had the means to pursue an English education, a Latin curriculum accordingly. And then thirdly, there was the School of Mathematics and Natural Philosophy, the highest level of education in Virginia, to which I was privileged to enter. I studied there for 2 years before I left to begin reading law with Mr. Whiff. And then finally, fourthly, there was the Indian School for the education of the eldest sons of the Indian tribes that were on reservations within 1 day's ride here. The first reservations of the English here on the continent of North America were provided by the Virginia House of Burgesses, 16 and 70s. There were 3 of them initially, for the Mattaponi, and then for the Pamunkey, and finally the Chickahominy. The eldest sons in those Aboriginal families would pursue an English curriculum here at the Old Royal College. The 4 schools of that college. And it was Governor Dunmore who suggested that I improve the curriculum. And so I suggested a school of law and policy, a school of medicine, a school of modern languages, and a school of literature. I turned in my report, and it received a negative. They considered it would cost far too much money. That was not only the opinion of the Royal Governor, it was the opinion of the Board of Visitors at the Old Royal College, the opinion of the House of Burgesses at the time that supplied the funds directed through the Church of England. Well, my reply was immediately, simply build it and they will come. Well, citizens, the point being, we must always have an eye to the future. We must always have an eye and an understanding. We're not the final generation upon this globe. As there were many before us, we hope there will be many, many after us. And particularly most important are those who come after us, in order that what we do is not in vain, but provides for a greater happiness, a greater enlightenment, a greater understanding, particularly of those principles over which we shed our blood in the American Revolution. I was denied that opportunity to improve the curriculum of the Old Royal College of William and Mary. And curious, when I became the second elected governor of the new Commonwealth of Virginia, I would have never thought when I came here to attend William and Mary that someday I would be living in what we refer to as the governor's palace. But when I took residence there in 1779, it became known simply as the governor's house. I was the second resident as an elected governor. In fact, would anyone remember who the first elected governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia was? Oh, so you do know. Very well. Yes, it was Patrick Henry. I was not his first choice to succeed him. However, rest you assured, when I became governor, it fell upon my desk to then seek the improvement of the curriculum at William and Mary. I now finally had an opportunity. And so we created created the very first law school in our nation. And my privilege to commission the first law professor, Mr. Whiff, under whom I read law. To commission, if you will, a School of Modern Languages. To commission a medical school as well. And yet, some of those have not lasted very long. The School of Law has. Now that I've sought my retirement, the project of my autumn years continues to be the establishment of a true University of Virginia. That when in 1779 as governor, along with Mr. Whiff, we introduced 126 revisals of the monarchical code under which I was born and grew up, that Bill 79 of the 126 was the bill for education. The building of schoolhouses all throughout Virginia, providing an education to the poor as well as the wealthy, the female as well as the male. And that bill still has not been resolved. There is still not a system of education. How are we going to remember our past? And the first and foremost course to be taught in a universal system of education must be history. History is memory. And not a one of us would ever want to forget our own personal history, now would we? Fall back and make the same mistakes we made in our past? No. So I appear before you today as I've returned to this city to reflect upon that past, that we might remember, that we might be the further encouraged to pursue an educated citizen body. Simply to recognize freedom is not free. It requires an eternal vigilance. To remember that we were once governed by a monarchy, royalty, landed gentry, aristocracy. They were the ones that stood at the helm of our ship of state. But rest assured, since '76, that has not been the principle of who we are as Americans. It is no longer royalty that stands at the helm of our ship of state. It is now home. You, the people, we the people, stand at the helm of our ship of state. And rest you assured, we sail through uncharted waters. Man has never been here before. We've already faced many storms and tempests, and we will continue to face before us more storms and tempests because they are as natural in the political world as they are in the physical. And some of you have read just exactly that as I have written it. That which will steady our rudder as we continue to sail forward is the recognition of where we have been, the progress that we have made since the time we began this remarkable nation, the first nation in the history of man, founded upon principle, not upon monarchy or aristocracy. I am certain all of you have heard this before, but it is certainly worth repeating, is it not? That's why I gather amongst you this day to remind ourselves indeed of our extraordinary history. There's been nothing like it. The privilege of those of us living, the generations who have borne witness to our remarkable American Revolution. All eyes are opening, as I have written, and will continue to open to the rights of man. Many say, Mr. Jefferson, you must be a genius to have written our Declaration of American Independence. I reply to them, and I will continue to do so, both in correspondence, let alone in conversation. No, there is nothing new or original in our Declaration of American Independence. In fact, I never came up with one new or original thought. Everything in our Declaration has already been written, it has already been argued, it has already been debated. You may find it in the elementary books of public right, the works of Aristotle, Cicero, Algernon Sidney, John Locke. Those authors I'm certain many of you have read and revisit often, do you not? No, you do not. I know you do not. That's why we're here. Particularly to remind ourselves, lest we forget, in 1776, many Americans could not even read. You know, when I was invited to take up the pen in Philadelphia City, after being invited to sit upon a committee of 5 men to draft our Declaration of American Independence, we did not know it would become a fait accompli by any means. No. The vote for independence had to be taken first. The committee to draft the Declaration was there to prescribe the foundation, the principles upon which that vote would be taken. And when I was given the honor of taking up the pen, I set out to realize what I will write must be a resuscitation, a revitalization of those principles of liberty that have followed through the human story, our story of the eternal struggle for liberty. Those principles that have existed from time immemorial, and yet to be understood by the common man, that they might understand our American Revolution is being fought on behalf of the common man. I must seek to shed the lofty sophisms of these ancient authors and explain it all in clear and simple terms so that everyone might comprehend it, so that it might be comprehended in the diversity of our population, which has always been our greatest strength. To place before the world the common sense of the matter, and that is simply that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a few booted and spurred, ready to ride them, but that man holds an inalienable right in nature to burst forth from the monkish chains of ignorance, to assume the reins of self-government. That is the essence of the principle upon which we founded this nation, the principle upon which so many gave their lives and will be called upon again to make for a better world, not only for the living, but for the generations yet unborn. These principles are universal. It was meant that they would be read across the globe. Now, I had to write a dramatic piece, and I am no playwright. Something that could be read publicly to lift the human spirit to noble sentiments of what man can accomplish in collaboration with his fellow man for improving the condition of mankind. To resuscitate and make understood what Aristotle purported thousands of years ago. Yes, man is capable of self-government, but it must begin with whom? The individual. The individual. You are your first element of property. In that inalienable right, as Mr. Locke wrote, life, liberty, the pursuit of property, lest we forget, yes, an individual has a right to acquire property, but the first element of property is you. And not another soul has a right to deny you the pursuit of everything you can possibly achieve. The Greeks knew it as arete, A-R-E-T-E, the pursuit of excellence. To fulfill your capacity, here, the opportunity, the first in human history, where we might have that equal opportunity to become everything you can possibly be